Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about EdPuzzle and instruction, specifically how you can use your own homemade instructional videos and get them onto the EdPuzzle site in order to make them interactive, like adding different features such as your own voice, questions that the students have to answer, extended response, alternative ways for them to get sent to other websites, etc. So it really does a whole lot for your instruction, especially if it's going to be remote or blended or whatever that might look like for us this year. So today we're going to quickly go over downloading and using the EdPuzzle Chrome extension. If you don't know about that, I highly recommend it. It really makes it so much easier to get any YouTube video that you want just directly plugged into EdPuzzle and ready for editing. We're going to talk about uploading your videos to YouTube, setting up your EdPuzzle classrooms, linking your specific video to EdPuzzle, adding those interactive features to your video to assess student understanding, and then lastly, I would like to quickly cover the different types of data that EdPuzzle gives you on each of your students as they go. So first and foremost, hi, my name is Samantha Reed. I am a tech integration coach at a rural school in Illinois, and it's been a super interesting role to get into this year, and I'm really excited to kind of share these ideas with you, and I really hope that this is helpful. So first and foremost, moving your video onto YouTube. There are these 4 yellow boxes at the bottom of the screen. This presentation will be available to you through a link in the description of this video, so you should be able to click on them for help. So if you're not sure how to upload your video from your phone to YouTube or Zoom to YouTube or your Chromebook directly or Screencastify or whatnot, you can click on each of these boxes and they should link you to a quick description on how to get that done. But I am going to quickly kind of show you, at least on my end, what it would look like, just to give you an idea, and then I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording so that you can take a chance to upload your video. And for the purpose of this kind of online PD scenario, it can be whatever video that you have. So even if it's a video of your dog or your cat on your phone, this is really just all about practice. But of course, the end result here is to hopefully be using instructional videos that we have made of ourselves teaching. And it doesn't have to be a long video. These videos can be 3 minutes long, they can be 5 minutes long, they can be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. But the real purpose here is to try to make this feel like a real interactive classroom as much as possible when we can't always be truly interacting with our students in real time or face-to-face this year. So I'm going to go ahead and pop over to my YouTube channel. So this is what you would see just in logging into your YouTube account. And I recommend logging in as with your school account so that you can kind of keep everything school related in one area and you're not mixing it with a personal account or your personal email address. So now I'm going to I can go over to my name and click on my channel, but it actually works even easier than that. Another thing I could do is just click on this little video tool that says create and upload a video. So from here, if I'm uploading a video, I'm uploading it from my computer. So this would be a scenario where I'm uploading from my Chromebook, and that ties into Zoom in the sense that if you decide to host a Zoom call where you are the only participant and record it, which is actually what I'm doing right now, you can then save that Zoom call onto your Chromebook and upload it to YouTube from there. And it's a super easy process. There's a couple things like making sure that the password for the call is taken off so that you don't run into any issues. But now that I'm into my Chromebook, I can either search videos, which my video is hopefully there, or I can search my downloads. Sometimes it pops into one or the other a little faster. But once I click on a video, I've got one, I open it up, and it's going to immediately start putting itself into YouTube. Once you get to this page, right now my video is uploading. If I clicked exit out right now, it would be fine. My video would stick around. I'm not going to lose anything. It continues to upload. It just might not be as pretty because I accidentally didn't spend the time putting in the title or the description or whatnot. So you'll want to add your title, your description if you feel like you need it. Your thumbnails are going to be the first views that the students see of that video. So if your video awkwardly starts with, you know, your mouth hanging open and it looks really funny, you might want to upload a thumbnail just to, like this. There you go. Start of my video. I could add a thumbnail to pick a different photo. It could be an image, it could be a scene from within the video somewhere, but it's not necessary. It's just kind of a nicety. The other thing is that you'll want to choose whether or not this video is made for kids. Generally, whether you're K-12, it's probably not going to go to the wrong audience. So I recommend just clicking that it is in fact made for kids and that there's no problem with you posting it. And you'll click next. That'll take us to this video elements screen. For the purpose of just getting your video onto YouTube to get it to EdPuzzle, I don't really think you need to mess with this screen much, but the following screen does matter. That takes us to visibility. Your video is either going to be private, unlisted, or public. If you want to make sure that it is the easiest possible video to find, you'll want it to be public so that anybody can get to it at any moment. If you only want the people that have a specific URL or link to it to be able to view your video, you can mark it as unlisted, but I don't know if that is going to mess with your ability to get it onto EdPuzzle at all. Private is probably my least favorite when it comes to making these videos and using them for educational purposes, because the only people that are going to see this video are you and whoever else you have okayed. So even if somebody else has a link to it, if they're not part of that private group, they won't be able to view it. So I really recommend going public or unlisted. If your video is safe, it doesn't talk about anything that is going to be, you know, negative to be on the internet or for the kids, I really think just making it public is probably the easiest way to go. And you can control whether or not people can make comments on your videos. So if you're worried about that, you can take that down as well. And so then you just go ahead and publish. And I'm not going to do this because this video is already up, but once it's publishing, it'll continue on its own. You can see that it's kind of pulled itself up here, like I said, and right now it's just in that draft mode. So it's not up for anybody to see, and then I can delete it or I can continue the publishing process if I want to. But I'm going to go ahead and pause this video in order to give you a second to try and upload whatever video you might have on your phone or your Chromebook to your school YouTube account. That way we can then move on and start talking a little bit more about EdPuzzle. All right, so now we're going to talk about setting up your EdPuzzle account and classes. So at this time, please open up a tab and go to edpuzzle.com. If you already have an account, then this shouldn't take too long. I'm going to kind of fly through this so that I can talk more about EdPuzzle's features and such. Also, at this point in time, you should have a video successfully uploaded to your school YouTube account that we can pull to EdPuzzle here in a moment. So when you get onto EdPuzzle, the first thing that you're going to want to do is create a teacher account, and it may ask you for your school district or your subject area, and those are all okay things. It's really cool to kind of connect as a school district, because then you might actually be able to see some of the EdPuzzle videos that other teachers have already made, which is pretty awesome. Another thing is that you'll want to make sure you sign in with Google. Please do not go through the hassle of making a username and a password, and I will talk about this later as well, but the students will never make a username or password either. They will always sign in with Google, which makes getting from Google Classroom to EdPuzzle and doing these lessons super easy and super streamlined. So once you are into EdPuzzle, you'll have something that looks like this. You might actually be on the content screen first. And so we have these three categories that are up top: content, gradebook, and classes. Under the content tab, you'll really want to pay attention to this left side of the screen kind of list. And there are a couple parts in here that are really important. One is the My Content, because this is going to be anything that you've created. Whether you've assigned it to a class yet or not, your stuff will show up and stay in My Content until you delete it. Another cool thing is if you connect with your school, you might be able to see stuff that people within your own school have already created, and you can kind of take and recreate and share that stuff. You will never mess up another person's Edpuzzle account by opening up their video and making a copy of it. You won't mess anything up, so don't worry about that. But another cool thing that you can do is you can search all these other channels. So YouTube, Khan Academy, etc. In YouTube, I can search for any video, and if I clicked on any of these, it would instantly open up an editing screen for me to make the video interactive now for the kids. So I'm not going to do that. But I can also just search on YouTube. So at this point in time, if I wanted to post this video to YouTube, I could arguably just take a copy and paste of the URL, plug this into YouTube or into Edpuzzle. Get back to Edpuzzle, plug this into Edpuzzle, and it should find my video. Oh, and it did. And now I'm automatically in editing mode. So that's what I was talking about before. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of that. Another cool thing that you can do is you can actually just search Edpuzzle itself. And the fun thing about this is that these are videos that other teachers have already taken, and they've very likely already added questions to the video. So if I click on this Human Body 101 National Geographic, it seems like this teacher did not post any videos. So let's go back. Any video questions? Okay, so this video here, adding integers, right here it lets me know that there are 6 questions that this teacher added to this video. So if I click on this, I can see where those questions are at and what this teacher has asked these students to do. And we'll go through how to do all this in a moment. And the fun thing is that I can take that video now, make a copy of it, and make it my own. So if I don't like a certain question, if I want to take out questions, add questions, I can do that. But let's talk about your classes. So your classes, the easiest thing to do is to import from Google Classroom. So if you can wait for the first day of school, or if you can wait until all of your students are in their correct Google Classrooms, that is the easiest way to get them an Edpuzzle account and get them signed in and have everything just work seamlessly. So for the purpose of today, I'm going to go ahead and add a new class. And so on the left-hand side of my screen, I add a new class. I want it to come from Google Classroom. And then all my Google Classrooms pop up. So all I need to do is click on one of these and then go ahead and import, and it'll import my students, it'll import all of that, which I'm not going to click on their names right now just for privacy reasons. But in my practice course, you'd be able to see students, Edpuzzle videos that have no due date, and then Edpuzzle videos that do have a due date, etc. Okay. So once you have your class inputted into or put into Edpuzzle, then we can start looking at transferring over your video from YouTube. You can do it before and just make your video but not assign it to anybody too. I really recommend just playing around with stuff on Edpuzzle. I feel like just kind of clicking around sometimes is the best way to learn this stuff. But go ahead, and if you haven't already, at this time, pause the video and add a new class to your Edpuzzle and make sure that it's something that is from Google Classroom. It doesn't have to be, but that is the easiest way to get all of your students on there. And if you have already made a Google Classroom for your future class coming up this fall, but it doesn't have any students in it yet, that's okay. You can actually still add it. And then once you get students, you just refresh the screen and those new students should show up in your Edpuzzle, which is really nice for if you ever get a new student or if you lose students, things like that. So go ahead and pause the screen and do that, and then I will continue. Okay. So a few key things that I would like you to remember is that you can import your students directly from Google Classroom. It makes it super easy. And then when the students go to log into Edpuzzle, they're always logging in with Google. Every single time I have ever had a student have an issue with getting onto Edpuzzle and saying that they can't sign in, it's because they're trying to put in their student account information and not just clicking on sign in with Google every single time without fail. It's just because they didn't click on sign in with Google. I've had a couple times where they clicked on I'm the teacher instead of I'm the student when they were signing in, but it never has really been a glitch on EdPuzzle's side. So it's really important that they do that. And it's the easiest way too, because then there's no passwords to remember. Okay, so we took our quick tour. All right, so now we're going to talk about uploading and editing your instructional videos on EdPuzzle. I want at this time to tell you about the EdPuzzle extension. You can click on this circle here if you have opened up this Google Slides presentation, and it will take you to the EdPuzzle Chrome extension. Once you download the Chrome extension, refresh your YouTube page, and you should see that every single YouTube video pops up with this edit with EdPuzzle button at the bottom here. And it's really nice because you can take any video, whether it's a video that you posted of yourself teaching, or it's a video that you found by some other company or teacher or National Geographic or whatever. And if you click on this, it will automatically route you over to EdPuzzle and immediately put you into editing mode, which is really, really super nice. So go ahead and pause this video at this time, download that extension. I'm going to move over to the YouTube site again so I can show you how that works. You'll want to click on your video. So if I go to, right now your video might look something like this. And so to get to the actual YouTube video where you see that EdPuzzle extension button, you'll want to click on the little video on the side, and that'll open it up like a normal YouTube video. And if I scroll down, I can see this here. So go ahead and pause, get yourself to the point where you can see this button, and then when you're ready to take the leap, go ahead and click on it, and it will automatically route you over to EdPuzzle and put you directly into editing mode. All right, once you're in editing mode, there are a couple things that I want to show you, but I'm not going to go too far into it because I have created an awkward video that I'm going to play in the background that kind of runs through it all a little bit easier. The first thing is this cut feature. The cut feature can snip off the beginning of the video or the end of the video. It cannot snip anything in the middle. So if there's like a bad word that's said in the middle, it won't be able to cut that out for you. So keep that in mind, but it can make the beginning or the ending shorter. So if you only want a specific part that you want to show kids, you don't want them watching the whole thing, then you can definitely do that. In the next part, I'm going to go over what the voiceover button does and the different questions options. And so I want to go ahead and get back over to my EdPuzzle account, and then I can kind of start that video from you. So at this time, don't worry anything about your account. Just sit back and relax, and I'm going to go ahead and show you all the different features that EdPuzzle has. Okay, so in this scenario, I would like you to view this video as if this is an instructional video that I'm giving to the students. In your world, it could be something like you standing at the whiteboard, going through math problems. It could be you reading aloud to a student. It could be you doing a science experiment in front of them, whatever that might look like. I just really picked any random video. It ended up being a video that I had sent to parents earlier in the year, but I'm really just using it to show you the different features that EdPuzzle has. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. This is going to be the view that the students see. So this is after editing. I have edited my video. I have put in questions. You can see by these little teardrops here, that's where the questions start popping up. When you're in editing mode, you can move these. So if you put a question down at minute 2 and you're like, oh, oops, it really should be at minute 1, you can drag and move them around. But once you assign a video to a class, there's no going back unless you delete that video and re-edit again. And so you can't go in after the fact. EdPuzzle really doesn't like to change things up on them once you've given the work to them. So just keep that in mind. But there are some workarounds. So I'm going to go ahead and click play, and then once again, keep in mind this is exactly what the students would see. So if this is you giving your instructional video, you'll kind of have an idea of how it's going to feel for them. These quick checks are only going to be worth 1 point. So in the grand Oh, I'm sorry, I've got to go backwards.
Hi families, if we have not met, my name is Samantha Reed and I am your child's current science teacher. I wanted to go ahead and send this video because as your child is now in a new semester of science, they will start to see some of their first science grades. So the voiceover ability allows you to add your voice on top of the video. They won't be heard simultaneously. So this could be a really good feature for if you have a video where you are just going through a math problem or showing different shapes or colors or whatever it might look like. And then of course, after the video is done, you can go back and kind of talk through it instead of having to talk through your video at the exact same time that you are recording. This could also be a very good feature for read alouds or other things like that. To use the gradebook not just as a recording of permanent numbers that. Okay, so get ready because now I'm going to switch over to the different questions options. You're going to see a bunch of the different possible question types that you can add into your instructional video when you post for your students this fall, before it gets to the final summative. For that reason.
Okay, so one of the first things that you can do is you can add a note. So you can use this note feature to mention something to the student. So for example, you might want to tell them, hey, watch out for A, B, or C. I'm about to talk about this in the next section. You could tell them to take a mental break and pause. You can add pictures to the notes, voice recordings. You can add equations, links to other sites, all sorts of things. And the one cool thing that EdPuzzle does is you may have noticed that it pauses me. So the video is stopped, and EdPuzzle has a feature that you can select or can choose not to, that doesn't let students skip forward. So they can always go backwards. They can go all sorts around the place if they want to look back on stuff they've already seen in the video, but they cannot like flip to the end of the video and say that they're done before they really should be. And they have to kind of follow it at the pace that you make them, which is nice.
In the gradebook, you will see things that are called quick checks.
Okay, so this is an example of a voice note.
Okay, so you can also take a voice memo using the note tool, which is super easy and super effective if you have something that might take a little bit more time to tell the students about. It could be as simple as you just reminding them, hey, remember what I told you in class yesterday about A, B, and C. But either way, if your note is going to be lengthy, or if you just feel like sometimes using your voice might be a little bit more clear to students than having them read a written note, this tool is super easy and effective for that. Checks, and those quick checks are exactly that. They are hopefully tricky questions.
So here's an example of an open-ended question. I've already gone through this before, so I added just a little X here because EdPuzzle wanted me to answer this before I was allowed to move on, since I'm looking at this from the student's view. You can add underlining, you can add formulas, pictures, links. So pretty much no matter what you are adding into this video, whether it's a note, an open-ended question, or a multiple choice question, you're going to have the ability to add additional things to really beef up that question or that task for them. And I have a couple examples of that coming up as well. So the student would be answering in this section.
Tricky questions that I will ask students about various topics that we are learning, and then based on the.
So here's an example of the multiple choice question. For the sake of just kind of showing you how you can add in those links, I added in an example. You can use the butterfly life cycle site to determine which of the statements below would be most true, and they could click on this site. It would open up a new tab for them, so they're not going to lose their progress. They're not going to lose what they've done so far in EdPuzzle, and then they can go back and answer. And it does give them their results in real time. This can freak them out a little bit if your question has multiple correct answers, because if they don't get them all, it will mark it as 0 until you go back and change it. So you do have to have those conversations.
Based on their responses, they will be able to get a quick grade in the grade book that will serve as.
So this is going to be an example of a question that has multiple steps. So you can actually layer questions too, instead of having to have them all linear. I've also tried to throw in a quick example of how you can throw in photos, you can throw in links, all sorts of stuff. This is going to, right after they answer this question, it's going to link them to their open-ended question. So you may have noticed the video stays paused. It's because they're not done with this tier kind of system of questioning that they had to get through before they were allowed to move on.
Serve as an indicator of whereabouts they are in understanding that topic.
Here's another example of a note. In this note, I have wanted to show you that you can, of course, literally write something down for the students. We've got a link to something, we have a photo that they might need to look at, and then we have our voice recording.
The last thing that I wanted to mention is that each of these question options can have multiple other questions kind of embedded within it. So while I'm giving you this voice memo, I can also be leaving a note to the students. There's also a link in this voice memo that it will send them to a site to help them determine the mood of an image. I can also show them an image. So all of these things can kind of happen at the exact same time. When it comes to the multiple choice questions, they do get graded automatically. If you have a question that has multiple correct answers, then you can set it to have multiple correct answers too. But there is some finicky things, like if the student doesn't select every single one, it will mark the entire question as incorrect. But you can always go back and change that. So that's one thing that I always try to talk about with my students, is if they get something incorrect, or and they believe that they should be correct, or they should be partially correct, you can always go back in as the teacher and modify everything. And I always try to remind them of that. But of course, the extended response, you will have to go back and grade those all yourself. But the really cool thing that EdPuzzle does is, if you really just want to look at all of the students' responses to one specific question, you can. So you don't actually have to grade these assignments student by student, one at a time. If you wanted to, you could actually just look at one whole question all at once, all at a time. And that's kind of a really convenient way to see if students are getting something particular. Besides that, of course, this notes tool I really like. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I haven't personally used the formula or the math features, but I would love for somebody to try them out and to let me know how it goes, and if they felt like it was helpful to them or to their classroom. That topic. These quick checks are only going to be worth 1 point, so in the grand scheme of.
And that's about it. So even this photo here, I just took a quick photo on my Chromebook and uploaded it right to the little note and said something awkward at the end to kind of close it out with students.
You've got this.
And so it doesn't need to be super serious. It doesn't, you can add in those kind of fun elements to personalize it. I know that making those connections with students this year is going to be more challenging than it has in previous years, and I know that it's going to be something that's kind of on the forefront of our minds. But there really is just so many things that you can do with EdPuzzle. Your instructional videos don't have to be these pro videos. You can make a quick video of you explaining a topic like you normally would to them, and then just add in these interactive features. And the really cool thing is that some of these interactive features are going to be auto graded, so that you're not spending a ton of time with all this extra planning that we're going to be doing this year, and that you're getting to kind of pinpoint what kids need the most help right away, and hopefully not feeling overwhelmed by it. So in thinking about this, I was just trying to come up with all the different things that EdPuzzle could be really good for. And I honestly feel like this could be a really good thing for read alouds. You could have a slideshow of just each of the book pages that you go through, just like I'm going through a slideshow right now. And you could add that voiceover on EdPuzzle after the fact. The voiceover is much more clear and it's louder. And so it might be really good for your learners to have that. It could be good for history, telling those stories of the past, having those discussions through slideshows, or through looking at the textbook, or videos that are embedded as well. It can be a lot of different things. You could, of course, have this quote unquote live interactive math work where you're showing the kids how to do a problem, and then the video is pausing for them to take a break or to try on their own, or linking them to an outside an outside project that they now need to work on. And then, of course, you can also use it for things like predictive science experiments. By using EdPuzzle, you can take a video of yourself doing a science experiment, and right before that best part of the experiment happens that really shows them how everything's going to work together, you can force that video to stop and ask them, what do they to predict? What do they think is going to happen next? Why do they think that's going to happen next? And EdPuzzle won't let them go forward and see the rest of the experiment until they've done that, which is really awesome. So go ahead, and at this point in time, I'm going to pause the Zoom video or this recorded video that I'm creating so that you can go ahead and try and add some of those interactive features to your video. If you haven't already, go to your video on YouTube. You should have the Chrome extension and go ahead and click on it. It will auto force you over to EdPuzzle. It'll force you into the editing mode, and you can just start immediately adding those questions, those notes, play around, practice them. And I'm going to go ahead and pause. Of course, since this is online, you can take as little or as much time as you want, but I'm going to go ahead and pause the Zoom recording at this time so that you have a little bit of time on your own. All right, welcome back. So once you get to the point that you feel like you are done adding those videos and you are ready to assign it, you're in the editing mode. Now you've clicked that assign button. There are a few things that I want you to make sure to do every single time to make sure that your EdPuzzle assignment gets posted to Google Classroom. Google Classroom will not categorize it, so it will just automatically show up in their feed. Even on the classwork side, it will just show up at the top. And so that might mean that we may be rethinking how we set up our usual Google Classrooms. You can, of course, move around the assignment after the fact, but once you click assign and post to Google Classroom, it is going to their Google Classroom, it's showing up, and it's going to give them a direct link to that exact video assignment that you have created for them, which is honestly pretty cool because now they don't have to ever really find the EdPuzzle site. They're linked to it automatically from their Google Classroom that they're already in with you. So if I'm in EdPuzzle and I have this video here, I'm going to go ahead and just get back to my classes. Let's see, let's actually go to content and we'll just grab something from YouTube for the sake of showing everybody. Okay, so we have this maps intro. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this. And you'll want to look to make sure that it is in fact Google Classroom linked. And so this fifth period, 8th grade science is not Google Classroom linked right now. So that's not going to be a good one for me to click because it won't post as an assignment for them. But if I click on my practice course here, now I can give them a start date, I can give them a due date, I can prevent skipping, or I can take that off. I can turn on the closed captioning if I want, but the really important thing here is to click that post on Google Classroom. If you don't do this, you will have to reassign this to them if you want it to show up on Google Classroom. Can they just sign into EdPuzzle and access it that way? Yes, but if you want it to show up on Google Classroom, you have to click it this way, or you'll have to redo it later. So I'm going to go ahead and assign. Now, when I go over to my Google Classroom, and I can go ahead and do that now as well. In my practice course on Google Classroom, I can see in the stream that this EdPuzzle Maps one that I just threw up there has showed up. Honestly, I don't like the stream. I wish it automatically just put the kids to classwork. But even in classwork, you can see now that this EdPuzzle Maps assignment has shown up just at the top. So you may want to think about restructuring your Google Classroom. I can just take this Maps EdPuzzle that I've assigned to them and move it, but then I have to move it every single time. So it could be beneficial for you to have all of your assignments just auto pop up at the top, no matter what you're using, whether it's Flipgrid, EdPuzzle, quizzes, whatever. If it's linked to Google Classroom, it may be easiest just to allow that stuff to auto post to the top and then have other areas that the kids go for help or for their textbook or whatnot. But if it's an assignment, I'm thinking this year I'm just going to tell the kids, your assignments will always show up at the top. And then that way they're not really looking too hard for them either. And now this is going to just automatically generate a link to that specific video. The kids will still likely have to log in with Google. It may auto log them in, but otherwise they just have to click that they're logging in with Google, and it should take them right to this assignment, which is super, super easy. And I love that. But there are a few things now that you should have your video edited with some questions added. And at this point in time, you could pause and go ahead and assign it to a classroom if you would like to see how it works out for you. You can go ahead and pause and do that now. Otherwise, I'm going to go back over to our slideshow, and I just want to show you a little bit of the data. So I've put it on the slideshow to protect some of my students' privacy, but I want to show you some of the cool things that show up. So EdPuzzle can do some automatic grading for some things. Multiple choice for sure, although there are always some finicky things, like if there's more than one correct answer, you may have to go back. It also automatically tells you how many times the student went back to rewatch a section. So if you have it on the no skipping mode and the student gets to question number 2 and they don't know the answer, they can choose to rewatch that section to see if maybe they can pick it up the second time around. When you go back to look at the student's data, it will tell you how many times they went back before answering that question, which is great, because if they still get the question wrong, then you know, hey, student A went back 3 times. They really tried. They tried 3 times to go back and rewatch this section, and they still got it wrong. So now I know they're either very much so misunderstanding, or it's something on my end that I need to now revisit. Maybe I wasn't as clear as I thought. They also will give you a class average for each question by color. So you can see kind of at a glance which questions your class as a whole had the most difficulty with. It will let you review their work in multiple modes. So you can either go student by student and grade their entirety of their video work that they did, but you can also go question by question. So if you really just want to know how the students did on question 5, because that was the real kicker, the real question that's going to show you if they're getting it, then you can just click on question 5 and see all of their responses at once, which is really nice. And those 2 are all color coded to let you kind of see what questions they had the most difficulty with or the most ease with. Some other things is that it will let you know right on the main class data side of it, just when you click on your classes, it'll let you know the number of students that have turned in the work, and it'll also let you know the amount of time that they've spent on the work. So if your video is 5 minutes long and they took 5 minutes and 2 seconds to finish it, then you might know they kind of ripped through it. But if your video is 5 minutes long and they were on it for 20 minutes, then you know that they took their time, or maybe took too much time. So this is kind of what it looks like. So just on your normal student data, if you click on the assignment, you'll see a list of all the students' names. You'll see a list of how much of the video they have watched, and then their score. So right now here you can see the score here for this student. These students haven't finished it, so they don't have their score yet, and it lets you know that they have in fact not turned it in. A student can redo a video, but it will completely eliminate their last score. So it is truly trying again from start. This is what it looks like when it color codes those questions. So it lets me know, 7 of my 17 students got this one right. They really struggled with this, so I probably should go back. Here, 14 out of 17 had a good time with this question, so we're doing